The neon lights of Station Nexus 7 cast blue shadows across the cantina floor. Taemin sat at his usual table, waiting. His weathered hands traced the rim of his drink glass while his eyes watched the entrance. After 20 years of recruiting, mercenaries, he could read body language like a book. Veltar walked through the door exactly on time. The Krillian's forearms moved with military precision, his scaled hide bearing scars from countless battles. He had fought in 17 major conflicts and survived them all. Today something was different. Veltar's usual confidence seemed shaken. "You look troubled, old friend," Taemin said as Veltar took the seat across from him. The alien's throat. Sack pulsed twice before he spoke. "I cannot take your contract, Taemin. Neither can my crew." Taemin raised an eyebrow. "The pay is triple standard rates. The target is a simple farming colony. 5,000 humans, mostly families. No military presence listed in the records." "No." Veltar's voice was firm. "Find someone else." "I've tried. 15 different crews. All experienced fighters, all said no." Taemin leaned forward. "What aren't you telling me?" Veltar's large black eyes stared at the table. "The target world is Haven's Rest, correct?" "Yes. Small colony in the outer rim. They grow food for the trade routes. Nothing special about it." "Everything is special about it." Veltar stood to leave. "Ask the Hegemony Council why they want farmers dead so badly. Then ask yourself why they're paying mercenaries instead of sending their own fleet." Before Taemin could respond, Veltar was gone. 3 systems away, on Haven's Rest, Boram wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished installing the new irrigation pump. The morning sun felt good on his back. Around him, golden wheat swayed in the gentle breeze. It was a peaceful sight that made him smile. "The eastern fields are looking good," said Do-hyun, walking up with a farming report in his hands. "Crop yield should be 20% higher this season." "Excellent work," Boram replied, gathering his tools. "How's the soil composition in Sector 7? "Rich in minerals. Perfect for what we discussed." Do-hyun's voice carried a double meaning that both men understood. Boram nodded. "Good. Very good." His wife Hye-jin appeared at the top of the hill, calling down to them. "Lunch is ready, and we have a visitor." The 2 men climbed the slope to their small house. Inside, Yunseo sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. She worked as the colony's librarian, but visited Boram's family often. "What brings you here today?" Boram asked, washing his hands at the sink. "Community meeting tonight," Yunseo said. "We're planning the Harvest Festival. Also, I received some interesting books from the Central Library System. Thought you might want to read them." She passed him a data tablet. The screen showed farming manuals, but Boram's trained eyes caught the real titles hidden in the file: names, technical specifications, equipment lists, supply chain information. "Thank you," he said carefully. "I'll read them tonight." Back on Station Nexus 7, Taemin sat in his office reviewing files. The Hegemony Council's contract was strange. They wanted Haven's Rest pacified within 30 days. All human colonists were to be removed or eliminated. The reason given was security concerns, but no details were provided. His computer chimed with an incoming message. Another mercenary crew declining the job. That made 16 rejections in 2 days. These were hardened fighters who took on impossible missions for the right price. Yet none would touch this simple farming world. Taemin opened his personal files and searched for Haven's Rest. The colony had been established 15 years ago. Population grew slowly but steadily. They produced food crops and some light manufacturing. No military installations, no weapons factories, no strategic resources. But something nagged at him. The settlement date was 15 years ago. That was 5 years after the end of the Human Coalition Wars. The timing seemed important, but he couldn't figure out why. He pulled up the colonist registration records. Most files were standard civilian backgrounds: farmers, teachers, engineers, doctors. Normal people looking for a quiet life, but as he dug deeper, he noticed gaps. Missing employment history, classified sections in personal records, medical files that were partially redacted. One name caught his attention. Dae Sung, listed as the colony mayor. His file showed he had been a government administrator before coming to Haven's Rest. But government administrators didn't usually have combat medicine training or advanced weapon certifications in their sealed records. Taemin cross-referenced more names. Boram was listed as an agricultural engineer, but his sealed files mentioned explosive handling licenses. Hyejin was the colony doctor, yet her medical training included battlefield surgery and trauma care far beyond civilian needs. A pattern was emerging. These weren't just random colonists. They were people with very specific skills pretending to be simple farmers. His door chimed. "Come in," he called. A young Vorthan mercenary entered. Kang Ho was new to the profession but eager to prove himself. "Sir, I heard about the Haven's Rest contract. My team will take it." Taemin studied the alien's eager expression. "Have you ever fought humans before?" "No, sir. But I've studied their tactics. They're just another species. Flesh and blood like the rest of us." "Sit down," Taemin said. "Let me tell you about the Battle of Kepler Station." Kang Ho took a seat, listening intently. 22 years ago, I was part of a coalition fleet that tried to take a human supply depot. Simple mission. The depot was defended by maybe 50 humans. We had 300 ships and over 10,000 troops. The young Vorthon nodded. "Easy victory." "That's what we thought." The humans had this commander, a woman named Jiwoo. Small, quiet, didn't look like much. But when we attacked, something changed. It wasn't just the way she fought. It was the way she thought. Taemin paused, remembering. "We cut off their supplies, they improvised new ones. We destroyed their communications. They created backup systems from spare parts. We killed half their people. The other half fought twice as hard. But you won, right?" "We retreated after losing 60% of our fleet. The humans held their ground with 12 survivors." Taemin looked directly at Kang Ho. "That was a military unit. These people on Haven's Rest are supposed to be retired. Farmers." The young mercenary's enthusiasm dimmed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe there's a reason experienced fighters won't take this job. And maybe we should listen to them." As Kang Ho left his office, Taemin stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a peaceful farming world, people were living quiet lives. But his instincts told him there was much more to the story. On Haven's Rest, Boram finished reading Yunseo's farming manuals by lamplight. The technical specifications were interesting, very interesting indeed. He made a few notes in the margins and set the tablet aside. Tomorrow would be another peaceful day in paradise, he was sure of it. Taemin's ship docked at Freeport Station 3 days later. The massive trading post floated between 2 asteroid fields, a neutral meeting ground for mercenaries, traders, and information brokers. If anyone knew why crews were avoiding the Haven's Rest contract, he would find answers here. The Steel Claw Cantina sat in the station's lower levels. Smoke and strange alien music filled the air. Taemin found Kang Ho sitting alone at a corner table, staring into his drink. "Changed your mind about the contract?" Taemin asked, sitting down. The young Vorthan looked up with haunted eyes. "I talked to my uncle. He fought in the coalition wars." "What did he tell you?" "Stories." Kang Ho's voice was quiet. "About human soldiers who wouldn't die when they were supposed to. About battles where the humans lost but somehow still won." Taemin ordered a drink from the serving drone. "Tell me one of these stories." The siege of Mandara Prime. Coalition forces surrounded a human base for 6 months. Cut off all supply lines, no food, no ammunition, no reinforcements. The humans should have surrendered. But they didn't. They ate tree bark and hunted local animals, made explosives from mining chemicals, turned the base into a fortress using scrap metal and mud. When the coalition finally attacked, they found the humans had built an entire underground city. The young mercenary took a long drink. "My uncle said the humans acted like the siege was just an engineering problem to solve. They seemed to enjoy the challenge." Across the cantina, a group of Nexari mercenaries were playing cards. Tai Min recognized their leader, a veteran named Zixtal. He walked over to their table. Mind if I join the game? The aliens looked at each other. Zixtal nodded. Your credits are welcome, human. For 30 minutes they played in relative silence. Then Tai Min casually mentioned Haven's Rest. The entire table went quiet. Cards were set down. The Nexari exchanged looks. We heard about that contract, Zixtal said carefully. Not interested. It's good money for easy work. No work involving humans is easy. The aliens' six eyes all focused on Tai Min. Especially not retired humans. What do you mean retired? You really don't know? Zixtal laughed, but there was no humor in it. Haven's Rest isn't a farming colony, friend, it's a retirement home. Meanwhile, on Haven's Rest, Boram walked through the colony's main street. Children played in the gardens while their parents worked nearby. It looked like any peaceful settlement in the galaxy. He stopped at Minho's restaurant. The smell of cooking food drifted from the kitchen. Minho appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on an apron. Morning, Boram. The usual breakfast? Please, and coffee if you have it. They sat at a small table near the window. Minho served eggs, bread, and fresh fruit. The coffee was excellent. How's business? Boram asked. Good. Very good. I've been experimenting with new recipes. Minho's tone was casual, but his eyes were alert. Trying different combinations of ingredients. Some of them have interesting properties. Boram nodded. Innovation is important. Have to stay creative. Exactly. Speaking of creativity, Yun Seo wants to expand the library, add a new wing for technical manuals. Sounds useful. The colony is growing. We need more educational resources. After breakfast, Boram walked to the community center. Inside, Yun Seo was organizing books on tall shelves. She looked up when he entered. Perfect timing, she said. I need help moving these to the back room. The books were heavy technical volumes. Engineering texts, chemistry references, electronics manuals. Not typical reading for a farming community. In the back room, Yun Seo closed the door. We received another shipment last night, the usual suppliers. She opened a crate that supposedly contained farming equipment. Inside were communication devices, sensors, and other electronic components. All civilian grade, all perfectly legal, but far more sophisticated than most colonies needed. Everything's working well, Boram said, examining the equipment. No problems with the network? None. Coverage is complete across all sectors. Response time is excellent. They were interrupted by Do Hyun entering through the back door. He carried soil samples in small containers. Test results are in, he said. Mineral content is even better than we hoped. Lots of useful compounds in the ground. The three of them spent an hour reviewing maps and charts. To an outside observer, they looked like colonists planning crop rotations and irrigation systems. But their conversation had layers of meaning that went much deeper. Back on Freeport Station, Tai Min sat with Zixtal in a private booth. The Nexari had agreed to explain the situation in exchange for information about other contracts. 15 years ago, the human coalition wars ended. Zixtal began. The humans won, of course, but at a terrible cost. Millions of their best soldiers were dead or wounded. I remember. I fought in those wars. Then you know how dangerous human military units were. Disciplined, creative, utterly ruthless when cornered. They fought like every battle was there. Last, Tai Min nodded. He had seen it himself. After the war ended, many human veterans wanted to leave military life, start families, live peacefully. The Earth government helped them establish colonies in quiet sectors. Retirement colonies. Exactly. Places where old soldiers could farm, teach, raise children, live normal lives. Zixtal's eyes narrowed. But soldiers don't really retire, Tai Min. They just change jobs. What do you mean? A human combat engineer becomes a farmer who happens to know explosives. A medic becomes a village doctor who can treat battlefield wounds. An intelligence officer becomes a librarian who's very good at gathering information. The pieces started fitting together in Tai Min's mind. Haven's Rest, is full of people who used to kill enemies of humanity for a living. Now they grow food and raise families, but their skills haven't disappeared. The Hegemony Council must know this. Of course they know. That's why they're hiring mercenaries instead of sending their own fleet. They want someone else to test how dangerous these retired farmers really are. Zixtal stood to leave. Let me give you some advice, human. These people chose peace. They built a life away from war. But if someone threatens their families and their home, what happens? They stop being retired. That night on Haven's Rest, the community gathered in the meeting hall for their weekly social evening. Families brought food to share. Children played games while adults talked and laughed. Boram sat with his wife Hee-jin, watching the peaceful scene. Dae-sung, the colony mayor, was telling stories to a group of children. Yoonji, the school teacher, helped organize games. Minho served food from large pots. To any observer, it looked like a typical small-town gathering, happy families enjoying each other's company. But Boram noticed other things. How Dae-sung positioned himself near the exits while telling stories. How Yoonji's games taught children to move quietly and hide effectively. How Minho's food portions were carefully calculated for optimal nutrition and energy. Small details that most people wouldn't see. But Boram had been trained to notice such things. Yoon Seo approached their table. "Beautiful evening," she said. "Yes, very peaceful," Yejin replied. "I hope it stays that way." Yoon Seo's voice was soft, but her meaning was clear. Boram squeezed his wife's hand. Around them, their neighbors continued their quiet celebration of community life. Children laughed, adults smiled, and the evening air was filled with contentment. But in the back of his mind, Boram was already calculating distances, supply routes, and defensive positions. Old habits from a previous life, just in case peace didn't last forever. 23 years earlier, during the Coalition Wars, Lieutenant Jiwoo stood on the bridge of Kepler Station and watched enemy ships fill the view screen. 300 vessels surrounded the small supply depot. Her communications officer counted the ships aloud, his voice growing quieter with each number. "That's the entire 4th Coalition Fleet," said her second-in-command, Major Subin. Jiwoo nodded calmly. "How many people do we have?" 47 combat personnel, 8 civilians. Ammunition? 3 days' worth if we're careful. Food? 1 week of rations. The enemy fleet opened communication channels. Admiral Kreshitar's massive form filled the main screen. His forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke. "Human defenders, you are completely surrounded. Surrender now and you will be treated according to Coalition law." Jiwoo stepped forward. "This is Lieutenant Jiwoo, commanding officer. We decline your generous offer. You have 50 soldiers against 10,000. This is not bravery, human. This is stupidity. We'll see." Jiwoo closed the channel. She turned to her crew. "Recommendations?" "The station has mining equipment in Storage Bay 3, said Subin. "We could convert it." "Good. What else?" "Hydroponics Bay can be modified to produce medical supplies," suggested the medic, Wu Jin. "The air recycling system could be weaponized," added their engineer. Jiwoo smiled. "I like how you all think. Let's get to work." Back in the present day on Freeport Station, Tai Min sat in his ship reading old battle reports. The files painted a clear picture of human military thinking. Where other species saw problems, humans saw puzzles to solve. Where others saw defeat, humans found opportunity. His computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from Nixrel, the insectoid mercenary queen who controlled the largest private army in this sector of space. She rarely spoke to individual humans. "Meet me in conference room 7, come alone." Taemin walked through the station's upper levels to the private meeting rooms. Nixral waited inside, her 6-foot frame covered in natural armor plating. Her compound eyes reflected the room's lights like jewels. "Sit," she said in her clicking voice. Taemin took the chair across from her. "You wanted to see me? You're investigating the Haven's Rest contract. Word travels fast. I've lived for 200 years, human. I've fought in 30 major wars. I've seen species rise and fall, Her mandibles clicked together. I've never seen anything like your people. What do you mean? Most species break under pressure. They panic, make mistakes, give up. Humans do the opposite. Nixral activated a holographic projector. Images of past battles filled the air between them. The worse things get for humans, the more creative they become. It's not natural. The images showed human soldiers in impossible situations, surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned. Yet in every case, they found ways to not just survive, but win. This is why my people refuse your contract, Nixral continued. We've learned that attacking humans in their homes is suicide. Haven's Rest is just a farming colony, run by people who used to turn battlefields into graveyards. Her eyes fixed on him. Tell me, human, if someone threatened your family, your home, your peaceful life, what would you do? Timon thought about it. Whatever was necessary. Exactly. Now imagine you had 20 years of military experience and a whole community of people with the same skills. On Haven's Rest, the morning sun revealed a busy community. Boram worked in his fields while Do-hyun checked irrigation systems. Their conversation seemed casual to anyone listening. The eastern pump needs adjustment, Do-hyun said. What kind of adjustment? More pressure in sectors 4 through 8, maybe 30% increase. Boram nodded. That should give us better coverage. How's the timing mechanism? Perfect. Response time is under 2 seconds from activation. They were interrupted by Yoon Seo approaching on foot. She carried a basket as if returning from the market. Morning, gentlemen. Beautiful day for outdoor work. Very peaceful, Boram agreed. How's the library project coming? Excellent. The new communication system is installed. Full coverage across all sectors. She paused meaningfully. Very reliable network. No delays. The three of them walked toward the community center. Their conversation continued to sound like normal colony business. But every word had double meaning. Inside the center, Yoonji was teaching a group of children. Her lesson appeared to be about local geography, but she was actually explaining sightlines, cover positions, and escape routes. The children learned eagerly, thinking it was all a game. Remember, she told them, if you hear the special bell, you go to your family's safe place and stay quiet until an adult comes to get you. Is it like hide and seek? Asked a young girl. Exactly like that. The most important game we'll ever play. Meanwhile, Minho worked in his restaurant kitchen, preparing the midday meal. His ingredients included standard vegetables and meats, but also various chemical compounds that could serve other purposes if mixed correctly. His knowledge of chemistry was extensive. Dr. Hee-jin made her rounds at the medical center. Her supplies included normal medicines, but also combat drugs, surgical equipment far beyond civilian needs, and emergency trauma kits. Her patients were healthy colonists, but she could easily treat battlefield wounds if necessary. That afternoon, the colony held its weekly council meeting. Mayor Dae-sung led the discussion about community improvements. They talked about new buildings, road maintenance, and harvest schedules. The perimeter fence needs reinforcement, suggested one colonist. Good idea, Dae-sung agreed. We should also improve the lighting system along the main paths. What about the emergency communication array? Asked another. Fully operational. We can reach any point in the colony instantly. The meeting ended, with everyone feeling good about their community's progress. Nobody mentioned that the perimeter fence was actually a sophisticated detection system, or that the lighting could be remotely controlled for tactical advantage. Back on Freeport Station, Tae-min received a message from the Hegemony Council. They were growing impatient with the delay in finding mercenaries for their contract. The message included a deadline. Find crews within 1 week, or they would handle the situation themselves. He sat in his ship's small cabin, thinking about everything he had learned. The battle reports, the mercenary warnings, the strange patterns in Haven's Rest's colonist records. All the pieces pointed to the same conclusion. The Hegemony Council wanted to test whether retired human soldiers were still dangerous. They were willing to sacrifice mercenary lives to get their answer, and when the mercenaries refused, they would send their own fleet to do the job. Timon opened his personal communication system. He had contacts throughout human space, people who owed him favors or shared information. It was time to make some calls. His first message went to a friend in military intelligence. The response came back within hours. Haven's Rest is classified. Cannot discuss details. Recommend you avoid that sector. His second message went to a retired human admiral. The reply was even more direct. Stay away from Haven's Rest. For everyone's sake. A pattern was emerging. Human authorities knew exactly what Haven's Rest was, and they wanted outsiders to leave it alone. The question was why. That evening, Timon sat in his ship looking at star charts. Haven's Rest was 3 days away by fast ship. The hegemony fleet would likely arrive within the week if they decided to handle the contract themselves. He thought about the peaceful farming families on that distant world, people who had served their time in war and chosen to build something better. They deserved to live in peace, but peace, he realized, might not be an option much longer. In his quarters on Haven's Rest, Boram sat at his kitchen table writing a letter to his sister on Earth. He told her about the good harvest, his wife's work at the medical center, and their plans for expanding the house. He didn't mention the coded messages he had been receiving from old military contacts, or the subtle preparations happening throughout the colony, or the growing certainty that their quiet life was about to be interrupted. Instead, he wrote about hope for continued peace and the joy of building something lasting. Some truths were better left unsaid. 3 days after his meeting with Nixral, Timon found himself in the darkest corner of Freeport Station. The black market district existed in spaces between the station's official levels, where deals were made that governments preferred not to know about. He was looking for Grixmal, an information broker who traded in military secrets. The creature's stall was hidden behind fake cargo containers and false walls. When Timon finally found it, Grixmal's 8 eyes studied him carefully. Humans seeks dangerous knowledge, the broker hissed. Knowledge about other humans. I need to know about Haven's Rest, the real story. Grixmal's tentacles curled thoughtfully. Expensive information. Very expensive. Timon placed a credit stick on the counter. Start talking. 15 years ago, human government created special program, called it New Horizons Initiative, helped war veterans establish colonies in remote systems. I know that much, but you don't know selection criteria. Grixmal's voice dropped to a whisper. Only certain veterans were chosen, special ones. Special how? Psychological profiles, combat records, innovation scores. They selected humans who showed unusual creativity. Under pressure, the broker's eyes glittered. Survivors who never gave up no matter how hopeless the situation. Timon felt a chill. Go on. Haven's Rest was one of 12 such colonies. Each one became a self-sufficient community within 5 years. Perfect agricultural output, 0 crime, complete social harmony. Sounds peaceful. Too peaceful. Inspection teams found something interesting. These communities had built sophisticated defense networks disguised as civilian infrastructure, communication systems that could coordinate military operations. Supply chains optimized for rapid mobilization. Grixmal activated a holographic display showing colony layouts. They looked like farms and schools and hospitals, but they were designed like military bases. Meanwhile, on Haven's Rest, the morning routine continued as usual. Boram checked his crops while listening to colonist radio chatter. The conversation sounded normal, but he heard subtle code words mixed into discussions about weather and harvests. Eastern fields need attention, reported Do-hyun. Copy that. How's the soil moisture? Boram replied. Optimal levels. Ready for any seasonal changes. Translation. The sensor grid was working perfectly and could detect approaching ships. Yoon Seo's voice came over the channel. Library inventory complete. All materials are properly cataloged and ready for distribution. Translation. Weapons and equipment were accounted for and positioned throughout the colony. Excellent work, everyone, said Mayor Dae-sung. Community meeting tonight at the usual time. We'll discuss harvest festival preparations. Translation. Tactical briefing at 1900 hours to review defense plans. After lunch, Boram walked to the colony's industrial center. The building housed repair shops, manufacturing equipment, and storage facilities. It looked like a typical maintenance facility, but Boram knew better. Inside, several colonists worked on various projects. Wu Jin was repairing farming equipment that looked suspiciously like it could be quickly converted to other purposes. Su Young was crafting decorative metal sculptures that used techniques commonly found in military engineering. "How's the art? Project coming?" Boram asked Su Young. "Very well. The new pieces have interesting structural properties." She smiled. "Beautiful to look at, but very strong. Built to last." In the back room, Minho was working with chemical supplies. His official job was developing new fertilizers and food preservatives. His actual work involved compounds that could serve multiple functions if needed. "Any progress on the soil enhancement project?" Boram asked. "Excellent progress. The new mixture is very reactive. Small amounts can create impressive results." That evening, the community meeting filled the central hall. Families gathered to discuss the upcoming harvest festival. Children drew pictures of celebration decorations while adults planned events and activities. But trained eyes would have noticed other things. How the seating arrangement provided clear sight lines to all exits. How the discussion of festival logistics included detailed coordination procedures. How the children's drawing showed an unusual understanding of defensive positions. Mayor Daesung stood at the front of the room. "First, let's review our festival timeline. Events will begin at sunrise and continue through the day." "Food distribution?" asked Minho. "Coordinated from 3 central points. Efficient coverage of all sectors." "Entertainment schedule?" asked Yunji. "Rotating activities to keep everyone engaged and positioned appropriately." "Communication system for coordinating events?" asked Yunseo. "Fully operational. We can reach every family instantly if needed." The meeting continued for 2 hours. Every detail of the festival was planned carefully. But anyone with military training would have recognized they were actually reviewing a comprehensive emergency response protocol. After the meeting, Boram walked home with Hyejin under the starlit sky. The night was peaceful and quiet. In the distance, they could hear children laughing as their families tucked them into bed. "It's a good life we've built here," Hyejin said softly. "Yes, it is. I hope we can keep it this way." Boram squeezed her hand. "We will, whatever it takes." Back on Freeport Station, Taemin was making a difficult decision. The information from Grixmal had confirmed his worst fears. Haven's Rest wasn't just a retirement colony. It was a perfect military community disguised as a peaceful farming settlement. The Hegemony Council's deadline was tomorrow. If he couldn't find mercenary crews by then, they would send their own fleet. Based on everything he had learned, that would be a disaster for everyone involved. He activated his ship's long-range communication system and sent an encrypted message to his contact in human military intelligence. "This is Taemin. Emergency. Situation developing at Haven's Rest. Hegemony Council planning attack. Civilian populations at risk. Request immediate assistance." The response came within hours. Message received. Situation being monitored. Do not interfere with colony operations. Repeat, do not interfere. The reply was frustratingly vague, but the message was clear. Human authorities were aware of the situation and had their own plans. That night, Taemin couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the families on Haven's Rest. Children playing in gardens. Adults building a peaceful community. People who deserved to live without fear. But he also thought about the mercenaries who had refused the contract. Experienced fighters who understood something that the Hegemony Council apparently didn't. That some battles weren't worth fighting. His computer chimed with an urgent message. It was from Veltar, the Krillian mercenary who had first refused the contract. "Taemin, I know you're still investigating Haven's Rest. Take some advice from an old soldier. Warn the Hegemony to call off their fleet. They don't understand what they're about to face." Taemin stared at the message for a long time. Then he opened a new communication channel and sent a message to the Hegemony Council. Contract mission not recommended. Target presents unusual. Security risks. Suggest alternative approaches. The reply came immediately. Contract deadline expired. Fleet deployment authorized. Do not interfere with military operations. It was too late for warnings. The hegemony had made their decision. On Haven's Rest, the morning brought news that would change everything. Yunseo received a coded transmission through the library's communication array. She decoded the message quickly and called an emergency meeting. Within minutes, the colony's leadership gathered in the secure conference room beneath the community center. Bo-Ram, Dai-Sung, Hye-Jin, Do-Hyun, Min-Ho, and a dozen others sat around the table. We have a problem, Yunseo announced. Long-range sensors detect a fleet approaching our system. Estimated arrival 18 hours.
How many ships, Kai? Asked Dae-Sung. 47 vessels. Configuration suggests Hegemony Council forces. Hostile intent? Assumed. They're not responding to standard identification requests. Bo-Ram leaned back in his chair. After 15 years
of peace, someone finally decided to test us. Recommendations? Asked Dae-Sung. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Wu Jin spoke up. Standard defensive protocols? Agreed, said several voices. All in favor of activating Community Protection Plan 7? Asked Dae-Sung. Every hand went up. Motion carried. The mayor's voice was calm. Implementation begins immediately. Everyone knows their assignments. As the meeting broke up, Bo-Ram walked outside into the morning sunlight. The colony looked exactly the same as it had yesterday. People working in gardens, children playing, families going about their daily routines. But underneath the peaceful surface, 15 years of careful preparation was about to be activated. The farmers of Haven's Rest were about to remind the galaxy why experienced mercenaries refused to fight retired human soldiers. The Hegemony Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven's Rest system. Admiral Korthval stood on his command bridge, studying the peaceful world on his view screen. 47 warships surrounded the small farming planet. Enough firepower to crack continents. Scan results, Commander? He asked his second officer. Minimal technology readings. Standard agricultural colony setup. Population approximately 5,000 humans. No military installations detected. Weapons? Hunting. Rifles, farming equipment. Nothing that could threaten a starship. Admiral Korthval nodded with satisfaction. The mercenaries had been cowards, refusing an easy contract. His fleet would complete this mission in hours and collect the bonus payment. Open communication channels to the planet. On Haven's Rest, Bo-Ram stood in the colony's emergency command center, hidden beneath Yunseo's library. The room hummed with activity as colonists took their positions at various stations. Screens showed data feeds from sensors placed throughout the colony and surrounding space. Incoming transmission from the fleet, reported Yunseo. Put it on screen. Admiral Korthval's image appeared. His reptilian features showed typical hegemony arrogance. Human colonists, I am Admiral Korthval of the Hegemony Council Fleet. You are ordered to evacuate this world immediately. You have 6 hours to comply. Bo-Ram stepped into view of the camera. This is Bo-Ram speaking for the Haven's Rest colony. We respectfully decline your order. This is our home. You have 47 warships surrounding your world. Your refusal is not logical. Logic is a matter of perspective, Admiral. We choose to stay. The alien's eyes narrowed. Then you choose to die. We will begin bombardment in 6 hours. The transmission ended. Bo-Ram turned to the others in the command center. Well, that was direct, said Dae-Sung. 6 hours, said Min-Ho. Generous of them. Thoughts? Bo-Ram asked the room. Standard approach, suggested Do-Hyun. They're expecting helpless farmers, added Wu Jin. No reason to disappoint them. Bo-Ram smiled. Agreed. Let's give them exactly what they expect. Across the colony, the transformation began. But to outside observers, nothing seemed to change. Families continued their daily routines. Children played in the gardens. Adults worked in the fields. However, those farming activities now had different purposes. Duhyun's irrigation system began charging capacitor banks hidden throughout the colony. The water pipes carried more than just water now. Yunseo's library network activated communication protocols that connected every building, every family, every individual into a single coordinated unit. Information flowed instantly across the entire settlement. Minho's restaurant became a chemical production facility, creating compounds from readily available ingredients. His cooking skills translated perfectly to mixing more dangerous recipes. Yoonji gathered the children for their hide-and-seek game. Within minutes, every child on the colony had vanished into prepared hiding places, protected by adults who took up defensive positions. Dr. Hee-jin opened her medical center's emergency supplies. Surgical equipment, trauma medications, and combat drugs became available to anyone who might need them. Su Young's art studio revealed its true purpose as the colony's weapons manufacturing center. Her decorative sculptures were quickly converted into functional military hardware. The 47 ships of the Hegemony fleet began their attack formation. Admiral Korthval was confident this would be over quickly. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Target all population centers." The first energy blasts struck the colony's main settlement. Buildings exploded into fire and debris. The Admiral watched with satisfaction as the humans' largest town disappeared under concentrated fire. Direct hits on primary targets. No return fire detected. Excellent. Continue bombardment. But in the command center, Bo-Ram and his team watched their screens with calm interest. The buildings being destroyed were empty shells abandoned hours ago. The real colony infrastructure was hidden underground and in hardened shelters. "Surface installations eliminated as planned," reported Duhyun. "No casualties." "Enemy positioning?" asked Bo-Ram. "Perfect. They've moved into optimum range." "All stations ready?" "Standing by." Bo-Ram took a deep breath. 15 years of peaceful farming were about to end. Activate Community Protection Plan 7. Across Haven's Rest, the hidden infrastructure came alive. What had appeared to be a simple irrigation system revealed itself as a planet-wide weapons grid. Energy collectors disguised as solar panels began charging massive capacitor banks. The colony's communication array, supposedly for coordinating farming activities, took control of local space traffic systems. Navigation beacons throughout the system suddenly began broadcasting false coordinates. Underground facilities that had been disguised as storage cellars opened to reveal manufacturing centers, command posts, and weapons depots. The farmers of Haven's Rest stepped into roles they had performed decades earlier. On his command ship, Admiral Korthval first noticed something was wrong when his navigation systems began showing errors. "Commander, why are we off course?" "Unknown, sir. All navigation beacons are giving conflicting readings. Switch to internal guidance." "Already tried, sir. Some kind of interference." Then the first return fire reached his fleet. Energy beams, launched from the planet's surface, striking with impossible accuracy. But these weren't military-grade ship weapons. They were improvised systems built from farming equipment and mining tools. "How are they hitting us?" demanded the Admiral. "Agricultural colonies don't have planetary defense weapons." "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known weapon systems." More strikes followed. The humans were using their irrigation pumps as magnetic accelerators, launching metallic projectiles at orbital velocity. Solar collectors had been converted into focused energy weapons. Even the colony's waste processing system was being used to create chemical explosive payloads. "Sir, we're receiving damage reports from all squadrons. They're using civilian technology in military applications." Admiral Korthval stared at his tactical display. The human planet had become a fortress in a matter of minutes, but none of the weapons matched standard military designs. Analysis of their weapon systems? They appear to be improvised from standard colonial equipment. Agricultural machinery, construction tools, and household chemicals. "That's impossible. You can't build effective weapons from farming equipment." His tactical officer's voice was quiet. "Apparently humans can." The battle continued for 3 hours. The Hegemony fleet had superior firepower and military-grade equipment. But the humans had something else: creativity born from desperation, and experience. Every attack the fleet made was countered by improvised solutions: energy shields constructed from reflective materials, decoy targets created from inflatable structures, communication jamming using modified agricultural sensors. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Their radio transmissions included casual conversation and occasional laughter. Boram, the eastern sector needs more. Power to the grid, came one transmission. Copy that. Doohyun, can you reroute from the water treatment facility? Already on it. How's Minho's special delivery system working? Perfectly. Those chemical packages are very effective. Glad to hear it. Woojin, how are the projectile systems holding up? Running smoothly. Su Young's designs are working exactly as planned. Admiral Korthval listened to these transmissions with growing horror. The humans were discussing the battle like it was a community work project. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put, through. Boram's face appeared on screen again. Admiral, this is your final warning. Withdraw your fleet immediately. You cannot defeat 47 warships with farming equipment. We're not trying to defeat your fleet, Admiral. We're trying to give you the chance to leave before reinforcements arrive. What reinforcements? Check your long-range sensors. The Admiral's tactical officer ran a scan of the surrounding space. His face went pale. Sir, detecting incoming ships. Multiple vessels approaching from hyperspace. How many? Difficult to determine. At least 50 vessels, possibly more. Human military? Signatures are mixed. Human, Krillian, Nexari, Vorthan. It's a coalition fleet. Admiral Korthval felt a cold knot in his stomach. Who are they? Boram's voice answered from the planet. Friends of ours. People who understand the difference between attacking military targets and threatening civilian families. The new fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. At its head was a human dreadnought flying the banner of the Terran Federation. But surrounding it were ships from dozens of species, all flying the same message. Civilian protection. Fleet. A new voice came over the communication system. Hegemony Fleet. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Federation Navy. You are ordered to withdraw immediately from Haven's Rest System. This is a Hegemony Council operation. Admiral Korthval replied weakly. This is a civilian colony under Federation protection. Your attack constitutes an act of war against non-combatant populations. We were hired to pacify this world. By whom? The Admiral hesitated. He couldn't reveal that the Hegemony Council had hired mercenaries to test human defensive capabilities. It would be a diplomatic disaster. That information is classified.